Caleb from HomeFilmSchoolStudent.com and
Guy Sloggy.
And what we want to talk about today is, I've been getting a lot of votes on what you guys are looking for content, and we're getting close to jumping into cinematography. But we were talking, and Guy made the really good point that we should probably take an episode to talk about what all this stuff really boils down to. It's not about the cameras and about the acting, and I mean, if you really break it down, it's about story.
It's all about story, and that is, I mean, if we're going to talk about filmmaking on any level, you really have to have a good story to start out with. I just watched, and we joke about this a lot. We saw a film of a guy making some toast with, I think I don't know if he had a 7D or a Canon 5D. And it was the basically what he did is he took the whole morning of when he started making toast all the way till he started eating the toast. And I watched it and I'm like, yeah, there were some nice images there, and but what really was there a story there? Mm-hmm. And so we kind of talked about that a little bit, and I said, well, what would happen if we knew that the last time that the guy had eaten toast, he had choked and ended up in the hospital and almost died. Yeah. Okay, now the episode of making the toast and looking at the toast and eating the toast would have a story behind it. Or let's say he had Alzheimer's and he can't remember how to make toast, and all of a sudden this morning he can make toast because he's lucid for one moment. And so now we have a story. Mm-hmm. Making toast, it's a story, but it's pretty narrow.
Right. So what would you suggest to somebody who's maybe getting started on all this? Story. Okay, that's great, but what do I need to what are some key components that are really important in a good story?
In a good story.
We talked about a few of them, how conflict and your plot, breaking those down.
Right. We talked. We can, and we're going to break down, those elements of the story. Mm-hmm. But it really is what is the message of the story. For instance, I've been working on a screenplay and a story for about 7 years now, part time, for a feature film. I look at that and I say, okay, 7 years on a story, okay. If I'm not passionate about that story would have been gone a long time ago. Mm. And I think that's what we're looking at as far as a story. What moves you as a person? Is there something in your background that, were you, did you have an alcoholic father, or did you, have a brother that had Down syndrome, or is there something there that formed you that you have a voice and something that you want to say? And that's something that, if you're going to write your own story or tell your own story, and everybody has numerous stories that they could tell about themselves. And or the other thing would be, if you're going to work on a story or help a friend tell, their story, are you passionate about it? Right. Is it something that you really care about? Because if you care about the story, you're going to get in the depth of it. You're going to add a lot of elements and a lot of layers to it that, because you care about the story.
Right. And I mean, it's when you really look objectively at filmmaking as a craft, it seems like, everything does point back to the story. The way, like this video, the way we're shooting it, the way we're lighting it, the way it's going to be graded, all of that, cinematography, it's all components that point and take us right back to our story.
Right.
And the story that as filmmakers we're trying to share with other people.
Right. And we look at it and say, what serves what?
Right.
Do we serve the cinematography? Does the story serve the cinematography?
Mm-hmm.
Or does the cinematography, the acting, the grading, does it all serve the story?
Right.
And we have to say that all that serves the story. So whenever you make a decision on set, this camera angle, or are we going to have, are we going to use a boom, or are we going to use handheld, are we going to use minimal lighting or maximum lighting? We can use available light. All that points to how does that communicate the story better? Does it communicate the story better
Right.
or worse? And because we're all looking at the audience, how is the audience going to respond to the story?
Right.